Okay, I'd like to talk to you about the idea of converting between, we talked about converting between the metric system, but converting between the metric system and the Old English system, or really converting between any two types of units, that you can't just use the metric scale. The metric scale is really a handy thing because we don't even have to think. We just look at that scale, and if we're going up, we move the decimal left. When we go down, we move the decimal right. Don't even have to think about it so much. Really, a lot of the things we use in our everyday living, like quarts and pints and inches and feet, those are harder conversions. We have to think a lot harder. Now, I know some of us have grown up with that and we're more comfortable with it, but really, if you think about it, it's harder. So I want to talk to you about how to use a unit fraction to help us convert any type of units, whatever we're going from or to, as long as we have this scale to use the unit conversions that we'd be able to figure it out. Okay, so what is a unit fraction? A unit fraction means that it's a fraction where the top and the bottom are equivalent amounts. They may not be in the same units, but they would reduce out to equivalent things, like 60 seconds we know is a minute. They're the same thing. So unit meaning they reduce to 1. These are the same thing. If you divided them, that would be 1. 60 seconds could be called 1 minute, so you're dividing by itself. So equivalent things. 12 inches is a foot. That's a unit fraction. It can be flipped upside down and say 1 foot is 12 inches. Again, a unit fraction. 1 hour is 60 minutes, or 60 minutes over 1 hour. Again, all of these can be flipped. Either direction counts. Now, this will be a handy way to convert our units. For example, when we're changing 4 hours into minutes. Now, I know you probably just know 4 hours, you multiply by 60, and you figure out how many minutes that is. But let's say it's something that we can't just do off the top of our head. This strategy should help you. So we can say 4 hours, put that over 1, whatever you're going from, this method, you'll put it over 1, and then multiply by some type of unit fraction that gets you where you're trying to go. We're trying to get out of hours and into minutes, convert to minutes. So I want minutes to be on the top of my unit fraction, so that's what will be left. And hours to be on the bottom, so when I multiply, the diagonal hours cancel out. So I try to think, and I know you know this one, but 60 minutes is 1 hour, is a true statement of unit fraction. So when I multiply that way, the hour part cancels, and then I can clearly see I'm multiplying what's left on the top, 4 times 60 to get 240, and the unit that's left over is minutes. So it converts it out to my minutes that I was looking for. Okay, so we're going to use that for number 47, and we're going to convert from miles to kilometers. Now, I can't ask you this, I couldn't expect you to know all of the unit conversions between miles and kilometers and inches and meters and all these random type of conversions. So I won't ask you any of these unless the scale is given. So none of this is needed to be memorized. So 1 mile, I do know, I can look this up, that a mile is 1.6 kilometers. So I could write that as a unit fraction. So I want to talk to you about whether I'll put it top to bottom or bottom to top. So let's see. I'm going 57 miles over 1, whatever you're starting with, you put over 1, and then multiply it so miles is on the diagonal to cancel out, and kilometers is on top. So I want to say 1.6 kilometers is equivalent to 1 mile. And because sometimes the problem is given like that 0.8 kilometer or 0.8 miles is 1 kilometer, it's given the other direction. So it just depends on what scale you're given. But actually, this one says 1.6 kilometers is equivalent to 1 mile. So the miles then would cancel out, and you would multiply across the top, just like the last example, 57 times 1.6, and be able to figure out how many kilometers that is. So punch that in on your calculator, and you should come out with 91.2. 91.2, it does say round to the nearest tenths place, so that means the place right after the decimal point. And evidently the number after it, you have to look at it to figure out how far to round. All right, number 48. Number 48, we have a room that's measured in yards, which is typical. Usually, I think we're still used to measuring in feet and yards. But then the carpeting is sewed in square meters, so we'll have to convert this one out from yards into meters. Now, you could do that individually. Go ahead and remeasure your room into meters. That way, when you multiply to find your area, it'll already be in square meters. But let's assume that you didn't. So the area of your room, 9-yard by 5-yard room, the area is multiplication of the length times width. So your room has an area of 9 yards times 5 yards, or 45 square yards. So the carpet, again, is sewed in square meters, so we have to convert it out. And again, this is a problem. You have to be given the scale. And I do know that 0.8 square meters is 1 square yard. So that's the conversion. It would say something like this: 0.8 square meters is equivalent to 1 square yards. So to convert out square yards into square meters, again, the method for unit fraction is you put that over 1, and then you multiply it by your unit fraction such that square yards will be on the diagonal, so it cancels when you multiply it. And then what you're going to is on top. So 0.8 square meters is 1 square yard. The square yards cancel. I'm left with 45 times 0.8, which multiplies to be 36, and square meters is the unit left over. So 36 square meters is the answer to 48. And that concludes the metric type problem.